Hey, friend.
Hey.
So before we started today's episode, we were talking about your new business venture. I think we should tell folks, just in a measure of accountability. What would you like to create that we are looking forward to very soon?
I can't share that with our audience yet.
Oh, okay.
We need to get investors.
We're
looking for investors.
Let's just say that
I can't say it on the internet.
Something to do with lube.
No, it doesn't.
Stay tuned, people. And also, if you were a potential investor, venture capitalist, just, DM us. Shit, we may have a little bit of an opportunity for you.
All I'm saying is we're all about visibility and wellness in big age.
In all the ways.
And some of us feel more comfortable sharing stuff than others. I was just having some interesting ideas.
Oh, okay.
My dad listens to us.
Hi, Mr. Ken. He will also appreciate this episode as well, because I think you're a whole ass lesbian.
I know you've said this many times.
I've said this many times, and I think today is the day, and I don't mean to out you, but
that's not a nice thing to do.
I know it's not nice, friend, but I also want you to just face the facts, because similarly, I think I might be a trad wife.
Yeah, so I think that for sure. So here's how this episode came about a couple months ago. So Tashira's way of communicating is very confusing to a lot of people, not to me. But I won't hear from her for a while, and she's really busy. And then all of a sudden, I'll get a message, either an email or a voice note being like, okay, so I think you're a lesbian. And we should do an episode on it. Or yesterday, out of the blue, she's like, so-and-so and so-and-so are coming to our live taping. And I was like, great, we're not having a live taping. So what? Sure. When are we having a live taping?
What I said was there's a method to my madness.
Right.
I know
right. So it's always kind of like I'm catching up or she's catching up. I said, I don't know. I don't know if a full-on episode on me being a lesbian in a life that is decidingly cis hetero would be a full-length episode, because I think a lot of people would say ha 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 yeah, but no.
Yeah.
But I can say aspirationally I'm a lesbian, and I can talk about that.
I like that.
But then I was like, you know what? You're a trad wife, because you have really stepped into your feminine.
Plot twist, bitch.
And you may be marrying a woman.
Yeah.
But you guys all of a sudden have some pretty normative roles.
Some heteronormative roles. And we have to talk about that also, because I think people kind of get that twisted. My fiance actually sent me a whole essay that a masculine of center person wrote. And she talked about the difference, this person, between a feminist lesbian and a regular lesbian. And evidently, feminist lesbians are a lot more likely to shirk these gender roles, while old school lesbians welcome them to some degree.
So you're an old school lesbian?
So evidently I've become an OG lesbian. Who knew?
Well, that would make sense, because we're kind of the second generation to get married.
This is true, actually. Yeah.
Right, because gay marriage was legalized in
definitely.
2009?
Yeah, we were younger. But we were adults. Yeah.
Right, but you're getting married. Some of my peers have gotten married. Boomers have gotten married, but after having been in partnership for decades before it was legal.
That's true. Nikki Giovanni just passed away, and people were kind of up in arms and not knowing that she had been married. But yes, that is very, very true. That marrying a woman is unfortunately still a relatively new right. But I would push back on that essay, because I think you can be both. I think you can obviously be all of the things. And what we want to talk about today is it bad to step into certain roles in your relationship?
Not if you want to.
Well, let's get into it. Tell me, or tell the folks here, because I think I have an idea of why you would characterize me as someone who has stepped into my feminine and has some, traditional wife roles.
So I think you are. So we've also talked about this, right? Okay. About being maternal and that not necessarily being connected to your role as a mother.
Okay.
So I think you are inherently very maternal, right? So you're a very natural caretaker. You're very empathetic. You're very kind. You're very understanding. And like you're great. So people are attracted to you and feel comforted by you. So that I think traditionally is a more feminine role than masculine. So that's one. Fair. I also think you are very organized and care deeply about your spaces and your aesthetic. Mm-hmm. Because it's how not in a superficial way, like so like you like see a space that's messy and you naturally clean it, or you see a dish and you like start picking it up. That also, I wonder if your male cousins
have not been trained or reared, that hasn't been incentivized by others in my family.
Right. So like that. And I'm gonna say something and I don't want you to take it as a criticism, but you have been like a little critical of me as a wife that I don't like, and I'm sensitive to this because because I feel like a lot of people don't think I'm a good wife.
Well, Margo, you're failing because I don't know why Josh doesn't have like, a bourbon on the table when he comes home. He works so hard. You're like not doing anything, bitch.
But I'm doing as much as I can. And so I feel like sometimes you're a little critical.
Okay.
But I can't always, sometimes I think you are, but sometimes I think you're not.
I'm
because
always joking. But I'm going to stop joking like that because
no, I need to be less sensitive.
No.
Because I think you also do understand how much I do.
You do way more than him. Shit.
But then there's this other part of me that I just feel like part of the reason I'm not good at like domestic stuff is I have a very short attention span. So I'm like, yeah, blah, 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 like, oh, we need groceries. Oh, like someone just asked me what the method to my ordering groceries is. And I'm like, oh, when we run out of groceries, I order groceries. Yeah,
it's not like the forecasting of the need for food.
Like sometimes I menu plan, but like I can't really do it.
Yeah.
Like you.
I don't know. So okay. So let me speak my truth about this. I receive everything that you just said. I think all of those things are true. And so what it means is if I'm in a relationship with someone who does not have those same kind of interests or proclivities or conditioning, which I will also like receive as far as why I have shaped this kind of worldview or how I show up in a relationship in the world, it means I end up doing a lot more of the domestic labor. And that hasn't always been true in my life. Like I've had partners before, specifically women partners, who have been more drawn to like homemaking and nurturing and like emoting in a particular way that I have been. But in this current season of life, my partner, she is not as interested in those same things that I am. And so I find myself stepping up a lot more and having to do work to like pull back to ensure that there is some level of parity.
So it's so interesting, right? Because I feel like we've combined things that don't necessarily go together, because I consider myself a very sensitive person and a nurturer by just like who I am. Like like my daughter, one of my daughters was sick last night. She like immediately woke me up. I was up with her all night. She wouldn't wake Josh up. Yeah. I mean, if I wasn't home, she would, but, and so that though, like, I feel very much a nurturer. Like I care deeply about like what they eat, and I clothe them and sign them up for school and activities and all these things. But I'm not, so like in some ways that's a role. Yeah. That's a socialized role, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just like not great at doing the dishes.
Yeah. Well, because also no one person can be or do it all. And I think that is where we have been critical of the trad wife movement. So I just realized that there may be someone who's listening to us for the first time who are like, what the fuck is a trad wife? I know you kind of broke this news for me last year or the year before. So give us a rundown. How do we define this?
Okay, so I am not an expert on trad wives, but trad wives kind of rose to some level of media fame over the last 8 years or so.
Damn, I didn't know it had been that long.
Oh, yes, through YouTube. And it was through vlogging and kind of the resurgence and celebration of domestic life.
Okay.
And the idea of the traditional American family, meaning in this context, a woman and a man in a marriage with like 2.5 children, with a home, a single family home, in a kind of suburban or rural environment. And now that has gone extreme, and we see creators like Ballerina Farm, who has like over 10 million followers and churns her own butter apparently, and also lifts weights and was a Juilliard dancer and has 8 kids and is 34 and goes to beauty pageants or whatever. So like it actually doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's this idea of the celebration of domestic life in a way that's commodified and monetized. And while I have no issue celebrating people who are doing the labor at home, because that is fucking hard. That is really, really hard to be home and in charge of caretaking all the time. So that should be celebrated. What I take issue with is the notion that people are doing all of this, because they're not. There is just no way to take care of 8 children on your own. There's just no way, right? And to cook every meal, and to clean your whole house, and to work out, and to homeschool. It's just not possible. So I believe we are sold a farce of what can be to make people feel bad. And I believe there is a real lack of understanding that creators and like the trad wife online movement that has monetized this role, that's their job.
Right. So they are working.
When you have a brand partnership, that's a job. That's sales.
Job. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
When you have to produce content that is looked at by other people and approved, that's a job.
It's part of the digital economy. Yeah.
And so again, and because now I'm broadly adjacent in this wellness space, I also see it kind of bubbling in this wellness space about like how you nourish your family, how you, and it's like, I don't know, guys, like this feels very grifty to me.
Okay. I love this idea of grifty. Let's enter that into the chat. But also when you say 8 years ago, it also makes me think about the rise of MAGA. And so what we've seen is this convergence of like socio-political conservative values becoming more popularized, and the rise of online platforms and people living their lives performatively online. And so I think when we break it down is we're being red-pilled. And I think about that by way of Nara Smith, because I didn't know, friend, that she was a trad wife.
Oh, yeah.
So she comes down my timeline one day only because another person was like imitating her. And I'm like, this is an interesting content.
Maybe explain to our audience who Nara Smith is.
So she is this very young woman. I think she's 23 or 24, biracial. She's married. She has 3 children, if I'm not mistaken. She's 2 children, which
young.
Yeah, 2 young children. She's also a young woman. And she's always in a ball gown or like a cocktail dress in her kitchen, making homemade meals, making homemade pastas, making homemade drinks. My children said they wanted a Capri Sun. That's how she speaks. And I said, no, I can go to the kitchen and juice my own melons. You know?
Do you think it's kind of like pornographic?
I think that's why people are like so attracted to it, because you're like, what is this?
Because I wouldn't call what she wears ball gowns. I would call it lingerie.
It is. No, that's fair. That's fair.
She's like, I'm making kimchi soup for my
husband.
Who's sick.
And she's like on the beach, topless, in a photo from the back, and her baby's like, nursing. Nursing. But it's also not like a picture about nursing. It's clearly meant to be a sexualized photo.
She's, for people who don't know, she's like this big.
Yeah. So I think she is
a model.
A model is actually like her claim to fame. And then, so here's the thing about it being a grift, because over the holidays,
this is so ridiculous.
She got outed at Chick-fil-A. And it's like, ain't nothing wrong. Well, maybe Chick-fil-A, there's something wrong with it, being that they're highly homophobic and MAGA supporters. But, ain't nothing wrong with a little fast food every once in a while. But your whole platform It's about being in the kitchen and doing all of these making all these homemade meals. And then let's bring the trad wife concept into it. It's not just the performance of femininity in this gender role, but we find out allegedly that her husband is a Trump supporter.
But that doesn't, I know that's something you keep talking about. Why does that surprise you?
It's not surprising. I just didn't know the bitch was a trad wife. And so all of this, what I'm saying is it's coming full circle.
Like you got, like she was a trad wife, but you didn't know she was a trad wife.
So the point is that they are giving us the honey with the medicine. They have found a way to make the gender roles palatable. And so it doesn't feel like you're, like, oh God, I'm so tired. You're ran ragged. You can be live and a model in your lingerie, making homemade pasta for your man and your 2 kids at 23 years old. And it's a beautiful experience. Don't you two want it?
It's just so upsetting to me because I'm involved in less of these conversations now that I'm not teaching full time, but for a long period of my career, I was teaching not exclusively, but young people.
Yeah.
And I ran a domestic violence clinic, and most, not all, but most of my students identified as women.
Okay.
And there was just kind of this like obsession. And I think particularly because I was a young woman and I was partnered I was pregnant twice during this period. So it was like quite clear that I was in this phase of my life. But so many of my students were just so kind of like, here they were in law school, like working towards a career, and like all they could think about was like, I need to find a man, I need to have a baby. And they're in their 20s, early 30s, some, but mostly in their 20s. And like this kind of idea that they were like falling behind,
they were late or whatever.
And I just like think about how our generation has maybe really screwed it for the younger generation, because somehow this idea that you can be like Nara Smith and be a lawyer and live in a city and pay your loans.
Yeah.
And be healthy and take care of your family. Mm-hmm. Like there's just trade-offs and I would argue that being partnered very young and having young children and being home, there are a lot more trade-offs.
Yeah. So then this goes back to my question about, do we take on these roles because we want to, or because we've been socialized into them? Because we've all received the same messages. We were talking on our way here today about the Disney fairy tales. I mean, I told you, I confessed, and I felt some shame about this, about how much I've hated wedding planning. It's fucking a terrible experience, Margo, and I wish somebody would have told me this shit.
I did.
Okay, well, I didn't listen. That's not new.
I mean, you were really excited about it.
You were like, friend,
I mean, it's one of these things, and like, would you tell someone how awful it is to study and take the bar right before they take the bar?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It's a little different. Josh, I love you. I loved our wedding. But it's kind of one of these things where it's like, ugh.
Oh God, y'all, it's bad. It's
kind of the worst of capitalism.
Oh,
it's
God.
like a lot of family dynamics.
Oh, Jesus.
It's made to make like female presenting bodies feel bad. Mm-hmm. I hope you don't feel that way, but like you have to like look a certain way.
You got to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's horrible. Like everything's like overpriced. Everything costs more. Everything. And it's also interesting because this is your business. Like, you know how much makeup should cost, how much and putting on an event should cost, how much like a design should cost. Because you do this for our work, but right, you know all this. And so like seeing the prices that people charge must also feel even more.
It feels ridiculous because I know that I just reached out to you for Lit and Legendary in April. And not only did you give me a different price, but you were willing to partner with me in exchange for promotion. Those same vendors now are like, no, bitch. And the price is the actual price. So pay the price or move on, because they know that somebody will, because the word wedding is attached to it. And I think as female-bodied people, we have been taught to attach so much meaning to one day. And I absolutely love my fiance. This is not obviously an indictment about that. It just means that this happy, magical part of your life that you're sold is, in my experience, and it sounds like in yours as well, it's just a ruse. Like, the jig is fucking up, dog.
No, exactly. I mean, and it is a really big deal, but it's a moment.
It's a moment.
And you have a lifetime, hopefully, with the person that you decide to spend a lifetime with. And so that, to me, is way more important than whatever.
So moving forward, like, what do we do? Because I do know that we're two people who shepherd feminist values. Much of our analysis on this podcast is from that lens, if not all. And so I don't want to assume that my actions in my day-to-day life are apolitical. So it's been informed by something.
So it's interesting because I think, good question. And I've been thinking a lot about this because, so you're being like really kind that you're not sharing this like deeply embarrassing thing that happened last night at my house. So, okay, let me just preface it.
Okay, go ahead, friend.
I really like to cook sometimes. I do like to cook. It is important to me to eat healthy food. It is important for me to have healthy food in my house so we can nourish our bodies.
Got to. Everyone
who comes to my home, I want them to feel welcome. And okay, so that's there. Yesterday, we had kind of like a really great day, but it was different than our normal filming day because you came in later than
in the evening,
right,
in the afternoon.
In the afternoon, so we kind of missed lunch. So we were and filming is like a lot of energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we were really hungry around 4:30. We were going to go out and do something, but we were like, no, it's too cold. And so I was like, I'm just going to cook. And I didn't have enough food in my house. I mean, I had some food in my house, but
food, yeah.
So I made this tofu, asparagus, spinach, stir fry that my kids love. And like Tashira ate it, but I could tell she was like, oh, I only eat tofu when I'm at your house. Like,
a little bit of a stereotype, but that's true. You only eat chicken at my house.
No, I don't. No, it's fine. Like, a lot of people don't like tofu. I get it. Anyway, she goes downstairs late, a couple hours. We hang out. We do stuff. We're chatting. We're like hanging out with my daughters. And then I go upstairs to put my little one to bed. And I get this text. And she's like, I'm ordering Korean beef. And I was like,
bitch, I was so hungry. God, I was hungry. God damn.
And it just made me think, like, actually, this is part of me that I want to change.
Okay.
Like, I'm so happy you felt comfortable. Like, I would have felt even worse if you stayed hungry all night.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not like me being a trad wife to have enough fucking food in my house.
Yeah, no. But Margo, I knew that I was going to have to do that DoorDash order when you pulled out them bran flakes for a snack. And I said, oh, I'm done. I said, I'm done for. Because it's not about not having enough food. It's that you are so healthy.
No, I'm not.
Friend, that's too comparatively.
I don't think that's true.
So healthy. And so between the tofu and the rice noodles and the bran flakes, I think my caloric intake was just a little low. You know, it was just a little low for me. But the thing about it that I don't want you to put on your shoulders, talking about like gender roles, is Josh was there too.
Yeah, so this is something we were talking about. Like, so I do all of the food, like Josh cooks sometimes, but I do all of the grocery shopping and the thinking about what we're going to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm not that good at it. I mean, I'm not that, as you can tell, like I have like a lot of green tea, but I don't have enough chicken. You know, like I have like a lot of sun butter, but
you had like 5 kinds. We had hazelnut butter, it was sun butter, it was pistachio butter, it was peanut butter.
Yeah,
it was a lot of butter.
Lots of spreads.
Yeah, you had a lot of spreads in that bitch.
But I you know, I don't really, Josh loves to eat well, but he doesn't have the capacity, or it's not important to him to like be on top of that either. And he would order in a lot more than I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So I was saying to you, like, this is important to me. It's not as important to him. I just need to like do it without resentment.
That's the thing, right? Doing what is important to us in relationships and finding a way to, I think there's something about spreading the responsibility. And if you feel burdened by it, figuring out how to shift that. Because the second we begin to feel resentful, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's managing the finances, if it's doing all of the grocery cooking, if it's dropping the kids off at school, if it's making the medical appointments. The resentment is what the problem is.
Well, I don't even have any resentment. I just like feel like sociopolitically, I have like convinced myself that I'm not going to do it. I actually don't mind.
Yeah.
I like going food shopping.
But can I say something though? It's a little different for you because you have young people looking at you. And so I think sometimes you do have to model a different behavior if you want them to understand what parity looks like in heteronormative relationships.
Well, I don't know what it looks like.
Well, shit, we figuring it out. God damn it.
Okay, so why do you think I'm a lesbian?
You're a full-on lesbo.
Because I went to Wellesley.
Outside of you going to an all-girls school. All women's school, K through college.
No. Just college.
High school wasn't all girls, friend?
No, I went to like the most male-dominated high school of all time.
Okay, my bad. Well, this is, I thought you was true to it, not new to it. But maybe this is a new development in your life.
No. I mean, there have been times in my life that I wish I were a lesbian.
Okay.
Because I feel more understood by women than men, typically, except for the men who are in my life right now.
Yeah.
And there's something about me that men don't like.
Yeah, it's
I want to be friends, or like I want to have a conversation, but there's something about me that makes them uncomfortable and they don't want to spend time with me.
Well, I think you have this very like radicalness about you about equality and that things should be equal. And that fucking burns the patriarchy up, bitch. And I think you are in spaces that look different from mine, obviously because I'm queer, but also because I'm Black, that there are pretty prominent roles that you don't play into, even by people who claim to be progressive, that you don't play into. So that's why I joke about you being a lesbian, because I don't know a lot of people who just like really to your core don't give a fuck. And I've said this before.
Like how?
Like I just don't, like you just don't care about being chose. The woman that I know today, I understand our struggles in our past. You don't care. You will wear the man repelling outfit. You have the man repelling beliefs. You are 100% unapologetically
Maybe
you
just
at all
tone
times.
it.
Okay, sorry, I did not mean to. I wear many man repelling things.
Wait, so like
and I'm a lesbian.
So like my loose clothing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I do like loose clothing.
Yeah, you like a lot of loose clothing. You're not doing all the makeup shit. You're not putting on the lash. Well, you did lashes one time.
I did not like it.
And you didn't like it. Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
And I don't like tight clothing.
You see what I'm saying? You want to become. And these are all things that are the way that anyone should be able to show up in the world. But think about how much we perform for the male gaze, especially when we are straight. And so, unfortunately, you've been dealt this really hard hand that you're attracted to men, but you show up as a lesbian. Fuck.
Yeah, that's so interesting, right? Because the confusing part to me is that the men in my life, I mean, I guess we would have to ask like my dad and my brother what they think about it. But like my husband actually is more attracted to like the real me than when I'm like wear makeup. He like gets weirded out. Which is also kind of annoying, honestly, because I'm like, I'm getting dressed up. And he's like, why don't you just wear your jammies? You know? I'm like, okay, fine. I'll wear my sweats. But so I think I also I am in a relationship with a man who is to his core a feminist.
Right.
And also not at all emasculated by feminist principles. Like he's not questioning his own masculinity because he's taken on a lot of domestic roles.
Absolutely.
So my experience is not typical.
So maybe Josh is the lesbian.
Oh.
Plot twist.
So I have a friend who is non-binary, married to a man.
Okay.
She goes by she, they. She, they go by she, they.
Okay.
And she said that her husband's a lesbian.
See?
But I didn't really understand what that meant.
I think it's also this, we're throwing lesbian around as a little L, not a big L, right? This idea that there can be a love and an appreciation for femininity, that it's not meant to be to take a back seat to masculinity, I think. And I think anyone can hold those values.
And typically in our society, the people who have held those values identify as lesbians.
Exactly.
And women.
And women. Yeah.
Would you say gay men
can be lesbians? Oh, my cousin Elle says he's a lesbian all the time.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But like why? Because that's interesting.
I think there's also like, this goes back to like who gets to be nurturers and who doesn't. And I do think that we have to step outside of that, because feminine energy should not have a label or a sexuality attached to it.
But then maybe it shouldn't be called feminine energy, because feminine energy connotates female-bodied.
So then it's just energy. It's just nurturing energy, right? It's just
right. So when maybe it's nurturing energy, just, not feminine energy. Like
I appreciate
in yoga and in some like mindfulness practices, there's like poses that are like feminine poses and masculine poses, and I get so angry about that, because I'm like, what makes I'm gonna the warrior pose masculine because it has like energy and it's strong, versus I don't even know what the feminine poses are. Like
Child's
happy
pose.
baby.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, let's birth a baby. Happy baby is like birthing a fucking baby.
It actually is.
Right. So another thing that I think is really irresponsible about the trad wife movement, or the glorification, I guess, of the trad wife movement, is the lack of recognition about the coerciveness of a lot of these relationships. And sure, I'm sure there are a bunch of trad wives who like are happy churning butter and making goldfish and drinking raw milk and homeschooling their kids. Like I'm sure there are. I don't know. But I think as a feminist, I feel deeply concerned when people don't have choices outside of the home.
Period.
And that is a recipe, particularly in cis heteronormative relationships, when one person, typically the male, is working outside of the home for money, and the woman is home caring for the home and the children, not for money. That while both of those roles are, I would argue, equally hard and equally demanding, maybe even more harder at home, the lack of independent economic autonomy and life outside of the home is a recipe for violence. And so what we're seeing now, which is no surprise, is a lot of former trad wives coming out and saying they were abused.
Yep. So if you all have not tapped into that, that's going around on TikTok and other social media platforms, because I've seen it as well. People are saying, wait a minute, what you're watching is performative. Let me give you actually what this was like in my experience in my real life.
Right. Like you don't have, if you're caring for children all the time, when are you making community outside of your home? If you're taking care of your home all the time, when are you making money?
And most people are not independently wealthy. And so what I don't like is this idea of a stay-at-home mom, when that person could be doing 5 virtual businesses she could be selling Avon, Mary Kay, Lululemon leggings, or not Lululemon, what's the thing called? LuLaRoe leggings. She could be a virtual assistant, but at the same time also doing all of the cooking, the cleaning, all of the domestic labor. That person's also working jobs, but they just happen to be virtual within the home.
So there's that. But then there's also some of these platforms that are celebrated as parents who are women who are taking care of their children in this particular way, are either independently wealthy or have family money. So Ballerina
Yeah.
Farm is married to the son of the CEO of JetBlue.
The big boss down there at
Or
JetBlue.
the person who founded JetBlue. Who doesn't even matter. Do you actually think she's cleaning her own home?
Yeah.
Do you actually even think she's recording her own videos?
That's definitely not editing them if she is recording them.
Right? Who's doing all the laundry? And I just think we do a disservice to humankind when we're not honest. And this is my issue with the internet.
Yeah.
Like, it can be really informative, it can be really helpful. You can meet really interesting people who you'd never interact with in real life. All of those things are incredible. You have equal, theoretically, access to information, although you don't. But it's just one part
of who they are. The other, it's an issue with the internet and how things go viral, but it's also my personal issue with religion and how it can be used as a tool of oppression. Because I don't know Ballerina Farm's religion, but I know
she's Mormon.
A lot of these conversations are happening within Mormon communities, Christian communities, and I think that we use religion oftentimes to reinforce these patriarchal ideals that are honestly just women hating at the end of the day. And if you have been raised in a background around these like traditional Christian values, yeah, I think that it's easy to believe I have to step into my feminine, as we know I was once told I needed to do.
And enjoy
it.
So that's the other part. Like, I personally am so like deeply grateful for my children and being a mother. And it was something that was really important to me and obviously still is very important to me. But there are lots of parts of parenting that I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me a bad mother.
At all.
And I actually think we were talking about this yesterday, right? Where when people feel like they're supposed to enjoy every aspect, and if they don't, they feel like they can't share that, or they're bad, or
back to me in the wedding planning. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like you're not a bad bride or like a bad fiance, or you don't not love your fiance because you don't like picking stationery.
Because there are also some things I just don't give a fuck about. I don't care what y'all eat. I don't care what color the linens are on the table. Like, I just really don't care. Yeah. And we're told that
we're supposed to care. So can I tell you the story?
Yes.
I've never told you the story. I mean, it's so random, but when I was in my 20s, I took my little brother who was in high school at the time. We volunteered for 2 weeks in Honduras.
Oh, wow.
I speak Spanish, whatever. We went with this group from Massachusetts that has a connection with an orphanage in Honduras, and we volunteered and brought awareness to what they were doing. There are issues with that, but I'll leave it there. And it wasn't religious. Okay. Well, the orphanage was religious, but we weren't part of a religious group going. Okay. And one of the other young people on the trip was, so I was 26. Okay. She was 22 and just graduated from college and engaged. Oh, wow. And she brought her wedding books. And I was engaged. I was 27 and I was engaged. She was 22 and engaged. So this is an interesting dynamic. We're like sharing a cabin together with my little brother who's in high school, her little sister who's in high school. They have this little romantic thing all of a sudden going on. Yeah, it was really cute. And this young woman went to Honduras with her wedding books, like Martha Stewart, and I don't even know, like wedding. And like, she was like, what's your colors? Because I was like, oh, I'm engaged too. Anyway, she's like, what's your color scheme? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Like white. I don't know, whatever my mom chooses. Like, and like, what's your dress like? And she had all of these spreadsheets, and the gig is that I don't even know if she even got married. She came out.
Wait, bitch, what?
But it was so weird to me how into her wedding she was. I'm not. It's not that funny. It's sad.
It's actually fucking hilarious. Because I did not think that's what you was like. And you said that shit with a straight face.
Well, it's true. I like years later, I was like, oh, I wonder if that girl got married. And it's like, oh no, she.
Whole time she was licking cooties.
I don't know if she was. Tashira, I'm just saying that like wedding planning can bring some people joy, that it doesn't mean.
Thank you. Yeah. That's what I took from that story.
It doesn't mean anything. It's just a party.
It's just a party.
Get the photos you want, but like who cares?
And we're going to have a good time. Yeah.
Yes,
for sure.
So our sponsor today, Juge. So we love Juge.
Love Juge.
Juge is a small woman-owned bitter company out of Austin, Texas. This one is so good. Orange digestive bitters. So do you know that bitters are really good for digestion?
You told me that.
So you can do it like this.
Okay,
I'll do this.
Show us.
That's fine. So you can put them in, water, sparkling water, mocktails, but you can also just.
Ooh. I need more of this because I have so many digestive issues. So I need more Juge in my life for sure.
I mean, it's strong when you do that. But it's good.
Okay, I'm going to taste it, y'all. It's faint. Like if you put it in water or in a mocktail or something, it definitely wouldn't be.
But I'm learning more about bitters in my
nutrition
program. And something that I was unaware of is that for a lot of us in a modern society, our stomachs, as we get older, don't produce enough acid.
Oh, wow.
That's why like digestive enzymes can help certain people.
Okay.
Bitters are like adjacent to that. So they help create a better acidic environment for digestion.
Gotcha.
And can help motility.
What's motility?
The movement of nutrients through the digestive tract.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So also with Juge, our code is JusticePod10. They have like cute packs. They have seasonals. They're all great. It's less of a sweet and more of a cocktailing, umami.
Yeah, umami or even savory.
Savory.
Because many cocktail recipes call for bitters. And if it does, that's such a perfect
so the
bitter
bitters,
to use.
Yeah, exactly. So highly recommend. Our link is in our bio. Code JusticePod10 for your first purchase. And thanks for the sponsorship, Juge. This really reminds me, and I don't know if this is like similar on, like trad wives and parenting advice.
Mm-hmm. I think like there's a convergence between trad wives and mom influencers because some mom influencers existed prior to the trad wife movement.
Right. And then adjacent to that are like the gentle parenting.
Ooh, okay. Now I don't know as much about them.
Yeah, I don't really know that much either, but there's this like idea of like you don't yell at your kids, you don't force your kids to do anything, like you encourage them, you talk to them, you gently remind them of healthy boundaries or whatever. And like that is a better way of doing it within the context of gentle parenting than punitive parenting.
Okay. Gotcha.
I can get behind a lot of that.
Okay.
But again, I think telling people how to do something that should be someone's own choice about how they step into that role.
Yeah.
So for me, there are a lot of times where I am gently parenting my children and having a conversation and trying to reason with them. And then there are times when I have to set a limit because I'm their parent.
That's real talk, dog.
And I want them to feel safe and I want them to feel seen and I want them to feel heard and I want them to feel comforted. I don't want them to feel scared.
Yeah.
But I also want them to know when they're crossing a line.
Yeah, at the same time, which is really important.
So again, I think kind of this idea of aspirational identities.
Maybe I appreciate that coming into the chat. An aspirational identity versus something that's rooted in reality. I had somebody ask me, they said, what kind of wife do you want to be? And I was like, I never thought about it. I never thought about what kind of wife I want to be. I want to be a good partner for sure. And I can't say that I want a lot to change. I want to be the kind of partner long term that has obviously care and patience in my heart. And the exciting part about being a wife for me is what it means to spend the rest of my life with someone and feel a level of safety and security in that, because that is one of the highest values that I hold in a relationship. Um, and if there's any aspiration, it's that. I don't have an aspiration to churn butter. I don't have an aspiration to wake up every day and to make her lunch, but I will. And when I do, I feel good because I like to take care of the people around me.
Same.
Yeah, but it's not a requirement. And sometimes actually she like shoos me away. The other day she wasn't feeling good and I like popped out of bed and ran to the kitchen and I got the tea and I got the medicine and she's like, "Girl, leave me the fuck alone. I didn't ask you for any of this."
I mean, if anyone wants to run to the kitchen, maybe I am a lesbian.
Came full circle, dog. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't mind being taken care of that way. Though I also like caring for someone that way. So
Yeah.
you can be both.
Okay. I totally
But
agree.
I do think there is this, have we lost our ability to define like ourselves as individuals?
Say more about that. What do you mean?
Like with the growth of social media and access to platforms espousing a certain way of living.
Okay.
Don't you feel like there's more like monoliths walking? Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
like it's like not that everyone was such an individual in the 90s, but like I do think there was more like, I don't know, like that family does this and this family does that, and this is how, you know, I get dressed in the morning and this is how I curl my hair, as opposed to
Yeah.
like everyone doing the same curl or
The heatless
the
curls.
heatless curl. But don't go to bed with your hair wet because that's bad. Like I don't know. I actually don't know, because maybe it was the same. Like we had 17 and we had Cosmo and we had
Yeah.
other things that gave us access to pop culture.
Yeah, I think it's just amplified, I would say. I think it probably always existed because there's something around like creating an in group that humans are just prone to since the moment that we existed. But I think what those in groups look like, there's just a lot more clear definitions based upon the potential for something to go viral. And that's why we specifically use the term trad wife in the title of this episode, because that's what so much of the online discourse has been about. And have there been people forever who played a more traditional role in relationships? Of course. But there's something about what's happening now that I think is more it is more influential
Well, also kind of the confluence of the trad wife with MAGA.
with MAGA as
And
well.
somehow that group of people embracing Donald Trump,
which is just
who's not like actually at all a traditional family person.
and
So that's another part.
Nor is Melania. So at the time of us filming this, Jimmy Carter, RIP to a real one, has passed away. They just laid him to rest. And you told me that Melania showed up
in a Valentino shirt, a white button-down shirt that had like a kiss print on the collar, which again, like I really don't like criticizing how people dress or look,
especially women.
Especially women, but this idea of it is a cognitive dissonance, and I think intentionally so. Right, these two people don't embody anything about the trad wife movement, right? She is his third wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was married when they met. She was a model.
Mm-hmm.
They lived in New York City.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
From the moment they got together, she had a boatload of domestic help.
Yep.
And that was celebrated,
mm-hmm.
right? He was an absent father for the most part, did not take a big role in Barron's life.
And we also know that he had a relationship with an adult film star, Stormy Daniels.
When she was pregnant?
Yeah, I mean, so.
Or right after or something. I forgot about that. How could I forgot? So, and she has never even pretended to be interested in like homeschooling or
him.
Or or domestic life. And so it is, as humans with a brain that tries to make sense of something, I think we are in a reality that like actually doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't normalize this.
Can I tell you something? And I'm gonna put my conspiracy hat on and I'm gonna take it off, I promise y'all. But over the break, I just dug deep into a lot of spaces of the internet about Christian extremism and Christian nationalism, and specifically this NAR movement. Have you heard of this? Mm-hmm. And they believe in like these 7 mandates of Christianity taking over the world, essentially, and politics being one of them. And until this happens, Christ can't come back, Margo. So in order for this to happen, they believe, many of them, that while Donald Trump and Melania are not perfect, they are the ones that a higher power are using to bring forward these 7 mandates. And so what you call cognitive dissonance, many of them are actually very aware of, but they've made sense of it to say, you know, the martyrs, they don't have to be perfect in order to bring on a Christian revolution. And that is also what we're seeing by many of them, and it's fucking scary. Conspiracy hat is now off.
Well, I don't actually think that's so out there. I mean, that makes a lot more sense to me than anything else I've heard.
Yeah.
And I did read some stuff about the NAR movement, and I believe it. I think people, including us, would want to kind of counter us and say, so what do we do? Right? Because like this, we often want to not be like gloom and doom, right? What do we do?
But shit is bleak, dog. Sometimes it's gloomy and it's doomy over here.
This morning, Tashira came into my kitchen and she's like, "It's over." It's over. I was like, "What's over?" She's like, "The world."
I was like, "Bitch, we all gonna die." And you were like, "I'm just trying to make you some eggs and spinach and feta."
I was stepping into my feminine.
You were. I'm sorry. That came with the gloom and doom. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I can handle it because I'm
every woman.
Okay, so I have an idea.
Yeah, tell us.
I think the only option is to keep living.
Because at the end of the day go in. Yeah.
Well, no, but and living unapologetically. Mm-hmm. It's like all of these things that feel weird, we can say that they feel weird and keep living our life.
Well, because we talk about a lot, too, that there is a gray area. And we are a lot less comfortable with the gray. And I think that there is no easy answer to the moment in time that we're in. But also, I think we just have to query and be curious about our own actions, honestly. And what makes us feel good and why when we are in relationship to ourselves and to other people.
Right.
Recognizing these larger systems and structures at play.
Yeah. And that good enough is sometimes great.
Yeah.
Right. So a good enough homemaker, a good enough parent, living the life that you have versus living a life that you don't have.
Yeah.
Right. Like some people can't have chickens, and that's okay.
That is okay.
You can go buy your organic eggs. That's what I do.
Or I get mine from Aldi for $1.99. So
I don't think you should do that.
Okay.
The bird flu's going
I just
around.
really don't need you to judge me right now.
I'm not judging you. I'm worried. The bird flu is like a thing.
Okay. Thank you, friend. So you all sound off down below. We would love to hear your thoughts about this. Am I a trad wife? Is Margo a lesbian? Have we made the case today or not? How do you step into roles in your relationships or not? And what advice do you have for younger people? We would love to know. Thanks for listening to Justice. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to learn more about our podcast, be sure to check us out on our website at justicepodcast.com. You can also reach out to us there if you want to be featured on the show or if you have a business or a product that you think would be a good fit for our audience. Thanks again for listening.